On a cold winter morning, the school hallway felt unusually quiet. Not silent, but hollow, in a way that made every footstep echo a little louder. Students moved in clusters, their laughter bouncing off the lockers, their conversations overlapping in a chaotic symphony of teenage life. Backpacks brushed against metal doors, sneakers squeaked against polished floors. Life was happening everywhere at once. And then there was Ethan. He walked a few steps behind everyone else, his head lowered, his eyes fixed somewhere between the floor and nowhere at all. At 16, he had already mastered the art of invisibility. He wasn't the kind of student teachers complained about. He didn't skip class. He didn't talk back. He wasn't disruptive or defiant. He was simply unnoticed. Ethan had become background noise in a world that celebrated the loud at lunch. He sat alone at the far end of a long table, pretending to scroll on his phone. Around him, conversations rose and fell like waves, but none of them reached him. No one asked him how his weekend was. No one saved him a seat. If he didn't show up one day, it would take a while before anyone realized he was missing. At home, things weren't much different. His parents worked long hours. They loved him in the quiet, practical ways adults often do, paying bills, cooking meals, asking if homework was finished, but they were too tired to notice the weight settling behind his eyes. Teachers saw grades, not the gradual fading of a boy who used to raise his hand. Each day blurred into the next, heavy, gray, meaningless. By Friday afternoon, Ethan had reached a quiet conclusion. He didn't want to come back on Monday. The decision didn't arrive dramatically. There was no storm of tears or slammed doors. It was a soft, dangerous whisper in his mind that said no one would really care. And the scariest part was that it felt logical. After the final bell rang, Ethan walked to his locker with a strange calmness. He opened it slowly, staring at the collection of textbooks, crumpled worksheets, and old sticky notes that had accumulated over the semester. One by one, he emptied it out. Books into his backpack, papers into the trash. He erased any sign that he had ever occupied that narrow metal space. As he pushed the locker door closed, something slipped out and fluttered to the floor. It was a small, folded piece of paper. Frowning, Ethan bent down and picked it up. He didn't recognize it. The paper was creased neatly, as if someone had taken care while folding it. He opened it slowly. 3 words stared back at him in careful, deliberate handwriting. "You matter too." He froze. The hallway was empty now. The laughter had faded. The fluorescent lights hummed above him. He looked around, half expecting someone to step out from behind a corner, laughing at some kind of joke. No one was there. He read the words again. "You matter too." Something shifted in his chest, subtle, unfamiliar. It wasn't joy. It wasn't even hope. It was more like a crack in the wall he had built around himself, a thin line where light might someday enter. That night, Ethan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The note rested on his desk beside him. Who had written it? Was it meant for him? Had someone slipped it into his locker intentionally? Or was it an accident? He replayed the past week in his mind. Had anyone looked at him differently? Had he missed something? The questions circled endlessly, but beneath them was a quieter thought. Someone believed he mattered. He didn't sleep much, but he did something unexpected. He decided to wait, just until Monday. When he walked into school the following week, nothing outwardly had changed. The hallways were loud again. Friends clustered together. Teachers hurried past with stacks of papers. But Ethan's eyes were different. He was looking at faces now, studying them, wondering, could it have been the girl who once lent him a pencil? The boy who sat behind him in math? The quiet student in biology who also ate alone? Days passed, and Ethan never discovered who wrote the note. At first, that frustrated him, but slowly he realized something important. He didn't need to know. The power of the words didn't depend on the identity of the writer. The message stood on its own. You matter too. The sentence echoed in his mind during small, ordinary moments. When he hesitated before entering class, when he considered skipping lunch, when the old whisper returned, suggesting he was invisible. If he mattered, then maybe his presence carried weight. Maybe his absence would too. He began making small changes, not dramatic transformations, just quiet shifts. Instead of sitting at the far end of the lunch table, he chose a seat closer to the middle. He joined an after-school club, even though he nearly turned around at the door. He answered a question in class, his voice shaking but audible. The first smile felt awkward on his face, like a language he had forgotten how to speak. But over time, it grew more natural. Weeks turned into months. Ethan wasn't suddenly popular. He didn't become the center of attention, but he was no longer invisible to himself, and that made all the difference. One afternoon, as he walked down the stairwell, he noticed a younger boy sitting alone on the steps. His shoulders were hunched, his eyes were unfocused. There was a familiar emptiness in his posture, one Ethan recognized instantly. He hesitated. Part of him wanted to keep walking. It would be easier, safer, but another part remembered a small, folded piece of paper. Ethan sat down beside the boy. "Rough day?" he asked gently. The boy didn't look up. He just nodded. There was a long silence. Ethan didn't try to fill it with advice or cliches. He simply sat there, allowing the quiet to exist without judgment. Then he reached into his pocket. Over the past few weeks, Ethan had started carrying something with him, small scraps of paper, folded neatly. On each one, he had written the same 3 words. He placed one in the boy's hand and stood up. "Just in case you need this," he said softly, before walking away. Later, from a distance, Ethan saw the boy unfold the note. He watched as the boy read the words. He saw the smallest shift in his expression, barely noticeable to anyone else, but Ethan noticed. Years passed. The memory of that winter morning never left him. It became a quiet turning point in the story of his life. Ethan went on to study psychology, driven by a deep desire to understand the battles people fight behind closed doors. He became a counselor, dedicating his career to the very students who felt unseen. In his office, there was a simple glass jar on his desk. Inside were dozens of small folded notes. Each one carried the same message: you matter too. When students sat across from him, eyes red from crying, voices heavy with shame or exhaustion, it listened. He didn't rush their pain. He didn't dismiss their fears. And when the moment felt right, he would slide a small folded note across the desk. Sometimes they smiled weakly. Sometimes they cried harder. Sometimes they simply held the paper tightly, as if it were something fragile and priceless. Ethan knew what those 3 words could do. He had lived it. The truth is, we rarely see the full story of the people around us. The quiet classmate, the exhausted coworker, the friend who insists they're fine. Beneath ordinary faces, extraordinary battles are being fought silently. A kind word may seem small to the one who speaks it. A smile may feel insignificant. A short note may appear almost trivial. But to someone standing at the edge of their strength, it can be a lifeline. You may never know the impact of your kindness. You may never discover whose locker you slipped hope into. But that doesn't make it less powerful. Somewhere, right now, someone is wondering if they matter. Maybe they are closer than you think. And maybe all it takes is 3 simple words to remind them that they do. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heart-touching English stories, only on English Life Tales.